Welcome to the Fantasy Football Healers Podcast, a show that is Dynasty Fantasy Football, now infused by the Fantasyholics. Fantasyholics.com, at Fantasyholics1 on Twitter X. You can find me at FF Healers and Colton at FF Captain 22 on Twitter X. Welcome in Colton Palmer.
How's it going, everybody? Back for another week to talk about maybe not one of my most favorite things that we're going to talk about this off season. That is the upcoming rookie quarterback class. And let me tell you, you guys are in for a show. So stay tuned in and see what we can tell you about some of these guys.
Show or a shuck?
That's a good one, Dad.
I missed the mark on that one, so it's fair. You had a good take. I did not, but we'll see what we get out of this one.
Before we get into the quarterback rankings for this year's rookie draft prospects, let's talk a little news.
It's been ages since we've hit that one.
I know, right?
I missed it.
The Chiefs are sending a 2027 sixth-round pick to the Jets for Justin Fields to back up Mahomes or to potentially start the year with Mahomes' injury healing.
Yeah, I think that both of those are, obviously what's going to happen. Depending on when Patrick Mahomes is, returning to game. He injured, mid-season probably? I can't remember what week it was. It was close to mid-season, though. And so there's a possibility he misses a couple weeks here in the beginning, just hopefully getting them healed back. And honestly, I thought this was a perfect move for them. I didn't dislike it at all. You get it cheap and, you get a quarterback that is experienced. Everybody's dogged on Justin Fields, but just a few years back, he was able to make DJ more relevant. He's proven that he's not a starter in this league, but I think he'll play just fine as a backup, especially Andy Reid. He's a very smart coach. He'll kind of know what to do with them. In terms of, Kansas City Chiefs weapons, not a big fan of having one of those wide receivers or Travis Kelce for those first few weeks. I think we could see very limited production in terms of throwing there, but my Kenneth Walker shares are very excited.
Yeah, hashtag Kenneth Walker the first part of the season. They'll definitely want to ride him for a good chunk of that first start while everyone's getting their feet underneath them. I thought it was interesting that they ended up going for Justin Fields because I think he's a different type of quarterback than Mahomes. But we've seen it that many good franchises have a good backup quarterback. And Justin Fields, even though he's flaming out in the league, he is still a top 32 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he's better than, a lot of other quarterbacks out there. So, and especially with this free agency class, and as we'll see here soon, upcoming rookie class, there's very limited options. So to go and get somebody like that, especially from a team that thinks he's just complete doo-doo and you had to pay nothing to go and get him, I think it's a perfectly fine move.
I'm surprised. I thought Kirk Cousins was an option for the Chiefs, but now maybe it's looking like he'll be an option for the Colts.
I've heard still a lot of rumors to the Steelers, man. I've heard a lot of things about swirling around that Kirk Cousins is almost a Steeler here. So, which I really wouldn't hate. I would like it more for my Pittman and DK Metcalf shares than Aaron Rodgers, in my own personal opinion. But we'll just see how that pans out for us.
Well, you know who the Steelers aren't signing? They're not signing Trey Lance because Trey Lance is re-signing with the Chargers and is currently their backup. Instead of an $8 million contract, they're getting a 1-year, $6.75 million contract out of Trey Lance, and good for him. Ching!
It is very impressive what a first-round draft capital can carry you through your NFL career as a backup. So good for him making the money. as long as Herbert's healthy, it doesn't matter. But he does have a tendency to get hurt. So just someone to keep in mind to have as a stash in super flex leagues.
Got two more quarterbacks on the docket here. One's a partial quarterback, partial wide receiver, partial tight end, partial running back, and that's Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill signs a 2-year contract worth $12 million. He's going to the Eagles.
Crazy, man. Absolutely. And we just talked about this last week, Dallas Goedert. You and I were talking at my house, and I was like, yeah, Goddard just signed a contract, and he had not actually, but it was released later that night that he had signed a
that was quite a call.
So I'm just saying, I can see the future, man. I can see the future.
Do you think the Eagles still go for a tight end in the draft with having Taysom Hill and with having Goddard?
There's a possibility. We will talk about the tight end class
Another time.
Upcoming weeks.
Sure.
But there's definitely a possibility they go to this tight end class because it is, as I'm unraveling it, a little interesting. So there's possibility they go to it, but we'll kind of see. They do have some older guys, but we've seen the tight end be able to play out a little bit longer than other positions. I mean, Travis Kelce's going into his 37-year-old season and finishes the tight end 3 last year. So it's possible that the tight end position can play a little bit longer than most others.
Well, the Eagles weren't done signing there. They also just traded for Andy Dalton. They can't get enough quarterbacks on their team. They get Andy Dalton from the Panthers for a 7th-round swap. That's it.
Not a bad idea for them. They've got a rushing quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and if he goes down, I like Tanner McKee from last year. He played in the preseason. He looked pretty good to me. I went and picked him up in some super flex leagues as a just in case because I thought he didn't look too bad. But obviously the Eagles have other ideas. I don't know if he's on the team. I honestly couldn't tell you his situation or contract situation, but it wasn't important. So Andy Dalton, the old Red Rocket, he'll continue to live another day.
I should have had the Skyrockets in Flight song on here. I'll have to add that in the outtakes. That was just beautiful when we did that 2 years ago. The Broncos have traded for Waddle. They end up trading a 1st-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 4th-round swap, and now they have potentially their wide receiver 1 now for their team. What say you about Mr. Waddle going to the Broncos?
I'm disgusted that you even added potentially in there.
I am a Cortland Sutton guy, so I'm going to say potential.
I like Cortland Sutton too. He's just been that guy that has, I wish, lived up to more. So I think Waddle walks into here pretty much being their number 1 go-to guy. Waddle was a 1st-round pick. He's produced with even what's been happening in Miami. His big thing is he just can't stay healthy. So I think this does help him going to a place where he can take some of the heat off of them too, because Cortland Sutton will absolutely still be an option to them, just an aging option. So they get a little bit of youth, gain some speed here. They get a kind of a 1-2 punch in this receiver room now. They have the Sutton as a threat, but now you also have Jalen Waddle, more than Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin.
Pat Bryant.
People loved Pat Bryant. I know, and he's breaking out. And then he gets injured. So
I'd argue that all 3 of those guys,
the same.
They have very similar prospects as Waddle. All 3.
Except for they're just not as good as he is. And they gave up quite a bit of draft capital to go and get him. So, they're planning to bring this guy in and have him be their number 1. And I really like it. And I like it with the way Bo Nix works too. We see him hit the short to intermediate much better than his deep. So I think they're going to get some short intermediate balls to Waddle and just kind of let him make magic. And I really love this move for both the player, fantasy, and the team, honestly.
What about for Miami? Who is Malik going to be throwing to?
Honestly, man, Miami is just saying, phew, we're looking to the future. they brought Malik Willis in, and I feel bad for him, honestly. He came in here thinking he had Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, you know, but my take from 2 years ago now, Malik Washington, hope you kept him, everybody. I hope you tuned into the Healers because, man, what a hot take, and it's taken off right now.
Malik to Malik.
Malik to Malik. It's going to be great. I love it.
Couple other wide receiver signings, and I'll let you kind of touch on any of these that you might have any interest in. Hollywood Brown signs with the Eagles. Christian Kirk to the 49ers. I think that one's an interesting one. Christian Kirk, when he signed with the Jaguars, he ended up making bank when he signed for them. And that first year with the Jaguars was one of his best seasons. With the Texans, they just seemed like they had an overloaded, crowded wide receiver room, and C.J. Stroud just didn't look that great this past year. So I feel like this could be a rejuvenation year for Christian Kirk. The one person I'd say really seems to hurt is they got Kirk, they got Evans. I just feel like Pearsall is going to have a problem in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, Pearsall's real problem has just been injury. I mean, he got shot his rookie season, missed a lot of time, came back, looked good, then got, I think injured even more later on in the season. And last year, his sophomore year, came out and looked dominant. I mean, he looked like he was going to be that guy towards the beginning, gets injured, and then, man, that 49ers team just couldn't stay healthy to save their lives. So it was just up, down, here, there, just because of injury. So it's definitely an interesting move there. I would see them as a similar kind of player. They work that intermediate range of the field, the go-to guy that's kind of open. I think Christian Kirk is probably the more polished route runner, but, it's definitely going to be interesting. I do think Pearsall, when healthy, though, will take that role. I think he'll kind of be the number 2, and Kirk will be that, safety blanket 3, like a solid, very, very good 3. But that's how I see it shaken out in my opinion. But that's when Pearsall's healthy, So Kirk is definitely a great cheap option I could see to go and get right now to potentially have 49ers number 2 wide receiver, because Pearsall's gonna miss time in my guess.
And Jawan Jennings hasn't signed anywhere yet.
Jawan Jennings is still out, and I think after this Christian Kirk signing, I don't know if he's coming back to the 49ers.
And I don't think Ayuk's coming back to the 49ers either. That seems to be written all over the walls.
Yeah, there was rumors that he was going to go to the Steelers, like everybody rumored just a few years back. And
the last 2 years.
And now with the Pittman and DK Metcalf there, I don't see the Steelers paying up to go and do it. So what's going to be done with Ayuk, I have no idea. But it sounds like there's a lot of things that there was just an article that came out about the dealings of him and how he's been such a pain to deal with from the GM and everything. So there's going to be some teams that are definitely soured from that. They've seen all these diva wide receivers, and sometimes teams just don't want to put up with that crap, man.
Kind of feels like a Commander. Ayuk could go to the Commanders, or the Patriots are still looking for some wide receiver help to surround May. I think those would be 2 good landing spots for him. For him or Jennings.
Are we going to?
Jennings is more of a Patriot, and I feel like Ayuk is more of a Commander.
There's a possibility. Are we going to talk about the rumor mill swirling though around the Patriots?
We can, but I do have 2 or 3 more guys to talk about.
Then we'll hit the rumor mill
for 1 sec. Okay, I'll talk about these 3 here. Got Jerome Ford going to the Commanders. Just talking about them. They now solidify their running back core. The John Mechie signs with the Panthers. Now they have a wide receiver 1. And then Darnell Mooney to the Giants, 1-year contract, $10 million. Your Darnell Mooney, may I add.
I do like the Darnell. I think we talked about this. I do like the Darnell Mooney to the Giants. I do like Darnell Mooney. I think he's a pretty solid player. He's a very good 2 for a team, and I think he's going to do a pretty good role of filling in that Wandale and just there to complement Neighbors. So I don't mind that signing there, and I think it kind of gives him a little bit of life there, so long as the Giants don't go to the draft board for a wide receiver. The other ones
might fill in the gap a little bit.
Yeah, the other ones are just jump forward to the Commanders. If you got JCM, you got to be somewhat exciting. You got to be somewhat excited if you're holding on to JCM or Rashad White there. So you got to be, a touch there because those guys are all, in my opinion, I think Ford has the edge of those three. But in my opinion, anyone can kind of break out if they just step up. I think it could be a hot hand situation. So you might be playing a dangerous game, but if they can kind of catch the hot hand and let it ride for a while, I think that's what we could be looking at. Once again, so long as they don't go back to the draft board.
To be a three-headed monster. That's pretty much what they rode with last year, and that's kind of what they want to ride into going into this coming season.
Yeah. Who do you like out of the three if you had to go with one of them to have on your dynasty roster?
It's tough because I'm a JCM guy, as you know, but I'm also a Rashad White guy. And I think on this offense, I would lean the PPR targets with a team that's going to be maybe opening it up a little bit more on offense with having their quarterback actually being healthy this year. So I would lean more White of the three, but I think Jerome Ford out of all of them probably has the highest touchdown upside because I feel like he's going to be more of a goal line back.
That's exactly what I was thinking. My opinion is White, Ford, then JCM. And like you said, just because White's going to he's a receiving back, and I think he's going to get quite a few targets, especially with a lackluster wide receiver room right now.
He's one of the most efficient running backs in the league over the last 5 years. So Jerome Ford was a great value for the Commanders.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to talk about with John Mechie.
No, I got nothing.
I mean, now that they don't have Andy Dalton, under center.
Yes. Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the reason.
That is the issue there.
What was the rumor mill? You really hooked us there, so we're coming back to it.
So, I mean, it's kind of rumored around everywhere right now is that currently, after post-June 1st, A.J. Brown is apparently going to be traded to the Patriots. That is the big rumor going around, and that was spread by some pretty big-name people. I can't remember who it was, if it was Pelissero or somebody, but I saw a major tweet come out saying that, and I mean, for me, excited for Devontae Smith shares, just because this is finally his opportunity to possibly go and be that one, whether they do go bring somebody else in or whatever, however it shakes out. But, exciting for A.J. Brown and Drake May as well. I don't hate the move, just in terms of fantasy and dynasty value. It's clear that A.J. Brown is tired of being in Philadelphia. It didn't work out the way everybody wanted it to. There was people that wanted off of A.J. Brown last year because of how bad he was performing. And a lot of it has to do with, Philadelphia, their offense, their play style. And there's too many mouths to feed there between Goddard getting touchdowns and Devonta Smith getting that intermediate of the field. So there was a lot of mouths to feed for a quarterback that is not the greatest of thrower and more of a runner. So I don't mind getting A.J. Brown the heck out, get those targets to Devonta Smith for my shares, and then, go get him with Drake May. I personally love the moves on all ends.
Well, and it seems like a lot of defenses are going to that shell defense. A lot of teams have started to modify their schemes into having more two tight end sets. So now they've got Goddard, they got Taysom Hill, they got two pass catching weapons right there. They just signed Hollywood Brown. You bring in Devonta Smith. They still have a very functioning offense right ahead of them, and not to mention Saquon Barkley, hopefully healthy this year. They still got a team that can run on all cylinders.
Yeah, they still have a very well-functioning team, and I think it helps both the Patriots and the Eagles too. I mean, at one point last year, he was absolutely being a problem in that locker room. And at some point, you just kind of be like, cut your losses and say, all right, you can go be free,
It'll be really curious to see what kind of package they end up getting from the Patriots because A.J. Brown is still a coveted wide receiver, and I think that they're still going to get something pretty good from it. But what it is, I couldn't say. Because if it's going to be post-June, I mean, are they talking about draft capital? Are they looking into 2027 draft capital versus the 2026 capital? If it's 27, that might be worth more than what this year's draft capital is in regards to receivers, quarterbacks, wide receivers, more offensive pieces.
Yeah, and I mean, we did see the Eagles lose a couple of defensive pieces, so maybe they're looking to bolster their defensive with some picks, or if they're trying to get some defensive guys from the Patriots. So
Eagles do very well with drafting defense. This is a defensive draft, so I mean, the Eagles are definitely going in on defensive players in this draft because it's so deep.
yeah, it's going to be they draft defense here and just kind of make do with what they've got on offense. So
Colton, it's finally here. The quarterback prospects of 2026. We're laying out the list right in front of you. We're 20 minutes into the pod.
do we have any more time to talk about like news and notes, or I could go on longer for that,
Colton, unless you got any more rumors that you want to spread or hand out to us.
Burrow to Minnesota. I heard that's a
What?
So Joe Burrow to Minnesota. That's a rumor. I mean, that's what I'm just going to carry it. No, okay.
No, that's not going to cut it there, Colton.
All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks.
Or we talk about the quarterbacks.
Oh, good.
Tell us how when you're playing in Dynasty, whether it's a 1 QB league or a super flex league, when you're looking at like ranking your quarterbacks, what kind of criteria are you looking for in your quarterback prospects to increase their value towards a player that you want to draft versus a quarterback that you're like, I'm going to stay away from this guy?
Yeah, so after having done this now for this is our third rookie draft we've gone into together, and after starting to like take this new analysis rather than I make my own opinions and then I listen to other people and kind of combine everything together and see. And so previous us doing this, I really just kind of listened to what everyone else had to say, and so I've started to build my own kind of mentality, listen to everybody else. And over these last few years, there's just a few big key things that I've really started to catch up on. And it's great when you have a quarterback that is incredibly athletic and can move the ball with his feet and gain yardage that way. But it doesn't matter if he can't stay on the field. I mean, Jalen Milroe, Anthony Richardson, a guy we'll talk about here shortly. It's just people that, yes, you have all the physical attributes. You are absolutely incredible. People are comparing you to Josh Allen. You can run the ball. It's rarer that we get the Josh Allens, the Jaden Daniels, the guys that can run and throw. And you got to have the intangibles too, is what I'm really starting to pick up on. You can have all the athletic ability in the world, but if you don't have the intangibles, if you can't process the defense, if you can't use your brain to think, NFL teams are not going to like you, and they're not going to put you out on the field. If you're putting the ball in danger, they don't care how fast you can run. They don't care how athletic you are. If you're going to put the ball in harm's way, if you're going to put the ball, give it to the other team, it's just not going to happen. And so I've really tried to start looking at everything in terms of, does he have the intangible things, the things we can't measure, and you can kind of see that as they process and, in their interviews, how do they speak and how are they talking? How do they hold themselves? That's kind of the things I've started actually looking at as well.
Yep. And when I'm starting the process, I'm trying to get like a list of names for starters. So I'm looking at like Walter Football, give me a list of people's names, what schools are they going to, heights, weights, those sort of things. I like a quarterback that tends to be a bit taller. So ideally somebody that's like 6'5", 230 pounds. So that way there's a decreased like fragility rating. I like the high QBRs, the athletic quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that have like an early breakout age. I'd like them to be able to have a little velocity behind their throws. The problem is when at the NFL Combine, which I've attended now the last couple of years, and even beforehand, like it just seems like less and less of the quarterbacks are actually doing the velocity tests. And when I am seeing them do the velocity test, then it's a bear to try and find the information on like, well, what was the speed of their velocity and like what's the threshold velocity that you're looking for. And so that one's a little bit tougher for me to have, have a better understanding about. But other things that we're looking for, and I know you're a film guy, Colton, is, how are they throwing the ball? Are they a guy that can kind of bring the ball back and zip it forward? Or are they a guy that has a long, lazy kind of arc that just takes a long time to process, potentially increasing their chances of being sacked? And so looking at some of the throwing mechanics, looking at their footwork, that's something that I like to at least observe or watch or hear about, from other podcasts. Fantasy Holics, there's a couple guys there with our friend Tier 1 QB. He definitely does his own formula to basically decipher how their passing versus their rushing score is. And so having that information, all this information is all coming in, and that's what helps me figure out like what type of quarterback am I looking for.
I also, like you, like to see numbers and everything as well. I don't like to discount the numbers, but I do also very much so put a lot of grading just into the film these days, because when Anthony Richardson came out, man, I'll tell you this, I as a Colts fan, I said literally anyone but Anthony Richardson. And that was my own opinion. I said, I do not want this guy. They drafted him. I texted a couple of my buddies, and they're like, no, dude, he's so athletic. Look, he's going to be so good. And I let it, because I was like, this guy's barely played. I'm like, sure, he's an athletic freak, but doesn't mean he's going to be. And they're like, no, he could be like the next Josh Allen. I'm like, I let him talk me into it. I let him change my opinion. And that got me hurt, man, obviously. And so now I've just kind of started to just twist things and kind of see. But yes, I also like the numbers and like to see how they stack up along with the film. And if I really like it when the numbers match the film. So I don't even go into it looking at any numbers prior. I don't look at numbers until I've seen the film. And if what I like on film is showing up on the numbers too, that kind of is how I start laying out my plan.
Yeah, and in my Excel doc last year, I added a stat: games played because of Trey Lance, because of Anthony Richardson. It seems like that's what the NFL wants. They want to have the experience so that way they can get thrust into playing time.
Yeah, we're seeing kids play longer in college, and that's starting to translate actually more. Everybody wanted to see the young quarterback come out, early declare they're so good, but now it's really starting to show that if they get a little more experience on their side in college, it's actually turning out better for them in the NFL.
Colton, I'm not sure how many quarterbacks that we're going to go through, but let's at least start from the top. Number one, the quarterback that is, I suspect, is going to be your quarterback one as well, a guy that's going to be drafted the first pick in this year's NFL draft to the Raiders with a Kubiak offense, and that's Fernando Mendoza.
That is Fernando Mendoza.
Tell us a little bit of why you have him here at the number one spot.
Draft capital.
Draft capital and, destination, I think makes a lot of sense when you're drafting some of these quarterbacks in Superflex. So if they have a first round pick in any of the NFL drafts, then that's a guy that you should probably be targeting, because we can at least see those guys have opportunities and have chances in the NFL. And you were just talking about that a moment ago with like a Trey Lance.
Yeah. And I'll just say it right now. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing on Fernando Mendoza. He's going to come out. He's pretty much a Raider at this point. That he's going to go 101 to them. So that draft capital is going to carry him high, and it's going to carry him through a long career. We're seeing Trey Lance. He was like the second or third overall, and he's getting still contracts. I like Fernando Mendoza as a quarterback in terms of I like
not a tight end or a wide receiver.
No. I like his intangibles. You can tell he really does process the field. You can tell he's thinking. He goes up to the line and is reading deep. I guess he doesn't go up to the line because that's one of my knocks on him. He is almost always in shotgun, which is insane to me. It's like almost every single game I watch, he's just shotgun. But that's beside the point. He's going to have to learn how to run out of different things than shotgun in the NFL. But back to my point, you can see him process the defense. You can see him make intelligent throws. That is one of my big points on him. He puts the ball out of harm's way on purpose. It looks like he's almost pinpointing it to his receiver to where his receiver can catch it, but the defense can't. And honestly, like throughout that, I saw a lot of receivers just not be able to make those catches and where he puts it. And I loved his positioning, like where he put the ball. He saw the defensive guy. He's like, I can put it here on my guy, and the defense can't get to it, but maybe his guy drops it a few like here and there. But one of my other knocks on it is, he was able to make those throws because so many of his throws were so close to the line, man. I don't know what his average ADOT was, average depth of target. I have no idea what it was, but it had to be low, man. I mean, I wasn't a fan of his deep ball. He threw so many short ones. It looks like you have my ADOT for me.
I've got yards per attempt was actually 9.3, which is 84th percentile at the quarterback position.
Now, is that average depth of target, or is that what's done with after the ball is caught as well?
So I just have yards per attempt. So there might be some yak in there too.
I was going to say they did a lot of short yardage plays and quick ball out of his hand, which does take some processing and everything. I think he's going to have an uphill climb as an NFL quarterback. It's not going to be all these little mamby-pamby short yardage stuff. Does he have the ability? I think so. His arm is good enough. It's not elite. It's not like a rocket arm like Justin Herbert has or anything. It's going to be good enough. I think he has the tools. In terms of fantasy-wise, I could see him being a mid-tier quarterback. He's not much of a rusher. When he does try to rush, it looks rough, man. And so he's not going to get a whole lot of yardage on the ground, but I think his ball placement skills and his ability to process is going to hold him into this league, which is just a valuable asset to have on a super flex team anyways, even if he is sitting a mid-tier quarterback. In super flex, sometimes you just need those, man. So I do like Mendoza, just not in terms of I'm getting a superstar here.
So Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner this year, NCAA champion. He has the height, 6'5". He's got the weight, 236 pounds. He's got the QBR, 90.3, 97th percentile. We already talked about his college yards per attempt. His breakout age was 19.9, which is still nearly 70 percentile. Fernando Mendoza, he concentrates only on football. This dude, he says he's like, I don't even have time for having a girlfriend. Like my game, like it's all about football right now. And so he's all about the football IQ. The main drawback I have for him is the landing spot, and that's with the Raiders. He's going to have every opportunity to be the quarterback there for a number of years, but they still need to work on the offensive line. They still need to work on getting him some pass catching weapons there with the Raiders. And they're in a really tough division, which I think actually helps Mendoza because it's going to force this guy to throw some uncomfortable passes in order to stay into games because they're playing the Chargers, they're playing the Broncos, they're playing Kansas City twice a year. That's 6 tough games right there. And the AFC is really not an easy place to play either. So that's the only knock I have for Mendoza is like, hey, they just need to get some pass weapons so that way they can make ends meet. Because if he doesn't have anybody that can catch the ball, it doesn't matter how good you are back there tossing it.
Yeah, and you are right. His average depth of target is 9.4. So, it puts him 34th or 35th amongst qualifying quarterbacks for it. So it's better. Maybe I just watched a couple of games that they were real close to the line, but it's going to be interesting. Where would you take him in a super flex?
If I absolutely need quarterback, you could argue the 102, 103. I took Cam Ward last year at the 102 spot in a quarterback needy super flex team.
I just can't find myself to pull the trigger. Well, I'll know more once I start breaking down the wide receivers here.
He's by far the top tier, only guy in the tier in this quarterback class. And unless you think you can trade your 102 for a quarterback that has higher potential, I don't know. I mean, that might be the move actually, is to trade out of the 102 see if you can get a quarterback that you can kind of get it recycled onto your roster and maybe get a little draft capital or another player on top. But I think if you were forced to make the pick, I think Mendoza, you could take him at the 102 if you absolutely needed to.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not out of the realm of questions. I don't know how great for fantasy it's going to pan out, but I mean, even a mid-tier quarterback is as good as, none of these wide receivers that I've heard of are going to be guaranteed hits either. So it is more of like, if you need that middle-tier quarterback for your team, it's definitely worth the trigger and pulling, because I think that's what it'll be.
Well, and again, Mendoza, he's getting drafted number 1 overall in the NFL. So he's going to have every opportunity. And if he fails with the Raiders, he's going to have another opportunity somewhere else. And then he's going to have another opportunity after that. So, this is a guy that he's going to withstand his value at the 102 spot if you absolutely needed to draft him there. And, we've got these top 3, 4, maybe 5 wide receivers that we'll talk about here in a couple weeks that we don't know where their landing spot is. We don't know how their draft capital is going to be. And they're certainly getting drafted past the 101 in the NFL. Spoiler alert.
You don't say.
But there can be some really, really, really ugly spots for these wide receivers. And that will make your mind change like in an instant, I think, on that 102 spot for Mendoza.
All right. I'll take your advice.
It's super flex. If in doubt, quarterback is not a bad pick if they have the draft capital and the landing spot and so on and so forth.
It's a big if. If is good.
Let's hear who your number 2 quarterback is, and then I'll give you mine.
I have to do it in terms of I'm purely ranking my guy, and not purely, but majority ranking my guys off of the rumors of the draft capital and what the NFL is thinking. You already know who it is. It's Ty Simpson from Alabama. There's rumors swirling. He's going to be a second round, possibly late first round pick. Am I drafting this guy in Superflex? Probably not. I think he's going to get drafted either late first. I think second. I think he's going to go in the second is my humble opinion. He's going to get some hype. He's going to go overdrafted in Superflex. He'll go at the end of the first round or whatever, which fine and dandy. But I have a feeling I'm going to want to take shots on other guys than Ty Simpson. He does have good ball velocity. He's been all right, but I just don't see him making it to the NFL, doing well. And he went so downhill as this Alabama season kind of continued on. It looked all right at the beginning. He was making very good passes. He was able to zip the ball in. It looked incredible. And then I don't know if it happened to him, if it happened to the team or what happened, but man, it just started really going downhill towards the end. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives, which put more pressure on them, which made them just do even worse. So I know you're not going to say Ty Simpson is your number 2, but what do you got on Ty Simpson?
Colton, I don't even have Ty Simpson in my top 5. And I know that may be a hot take, but I'm not a Ty Simpson guy. I know you're not a Ty Simpson guy. You have to find somebody in this quarterback class to be the quarterback 2, but I'm not picking a guy that was a former 5-star recruit that nearly got beat out by a freshman quarterback this year. This is mainly his first season, I think, playing in college. And as the season went on, he looked like he put up a poor and even poorer performance. And so that's telling me, as some of these teams are starting to watch the tape on Ty Simpson, they already had him figured out. And so I'm sorry, this guy's not for me. He had a 76.0 college QBR. Okay, you barely hit the threshold, 57th percentile. Yards per attempt, you were talking about yards per attempt for Mendoza. His is 2 yards shorter, 7.5, 30th percentile. Breakout age, my God, Colton, I think you might be nearly this guy's age by the time he broke out. 22.7, 9th percentile. So I really,
You're gonna get people thinking I'm really young.
you're really young there, Colton. You know, when I was watching Ty Simpson at the combine, there was one quarterback that my mind kept going to, and it was a guy that I watched last year at the combine, and I was like, man, this guy sucks. He's just gonna be happy to make it on anyone's team. And I know I said that out loud, and his parents nearly heard it and maybe heard it and gave me a scowl. And that's Riley Leonard. And he looked like Riley Leonard minus the athletic traits. So I'm sorry, I'm completely out on Ty Simpson. And stay tuned if you want to hear how far he's dropped in my rankings.
And I don't blame you. Like I said, I put him up here because draft capital does matter in the NFL, and it should matter to you. You know, I'm not saying you should bake it in. Like if he goes in the second round, it's already kind of baked in to what the NFL thinks of him. The second round. That doesn't mean you need to think, oh, I kind of like him, and then he's the second round, boost him up even more. Let it fall to you. You know, just analyze it. If he does go in the second round, you know, it makes him slightly more interesting, but it doesn't mean that he's a good player and that he's going to get the opportunity. You know, it just means that the NFL thinks there's a possibility. Do not go boosting him just because he got that second round.
You know who was in this situation last year, who we thought was a potential first-round pick, second-round pick, and ended up falling to the fifth round? Shedeur Sanders.
I think there's some other things going on in the league with that, but
you know, another quarterback that was projected in like the top 15 in his draft class, that was Malik Willis, and he didn't get drafted until the third round by the Titans.
He's got some opportunity now, though.
He does have opportunity now, but he took some time that he needed to develop. And, you know, Ty Simpson, he's not the guy you want right now. Maybe he's a guy you want in the future, but I'm sorry, I'm not here to hold a bag for 3 years and watch him develop on my roster. That's not the guy I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that's athletic, that's tall, 6'6", 240 pounds, has big hands, Colton, so he doesn't drop the ball. He can grasp the ball, throw the ball down the field. He can throw the ball further than 7.5 yards per attempt, maybe up to that 8.3 range. QBR greater than 76. How about somewhere around 82.8? An 82nd percentile, and had a breakout age of 19.9, 71 percentile. I'm talking about a guy that looks like Anthony Richardson, is not Anthony Richardson. He might be better than Anthony Richardson because he's more athletic per the combine. He might throw just like Anthony Richardson. So he does have downside, but he's a guy that's not going to be thrust in like Anthony Richardson was. Hopefully he's a guy that can develop on an NFL team, and that's Talon Green out of Arkansas, and he is my number 2 quarterback because I'm looking for in a quarterback class that doesn't have a true tier 2 or a true number 2. Why not take the big swing, Colton, and just go for Green?
I knew he was going to be your 2. And I love on your spreadsheet, it doesn't have his accuracy on here. And he finished his 2025 season with a 60.7% completion rate, 198 out of 326 attempts, which is
that
just
important.
You're darn tooting it is. Like you said, he's Anthony Richardson, except for also a lot smaller. He comes in a frame 6'6", 227. Anthony Richardson's 240 or so. He's got some more meat to him, so he can take a little bit more of a beating. And we've seen Anthony Richardson, get injured from the beating he's received in the NFL. And he's my number 3. I'll put him there because of the same reasons as he is a cheaper, athletic Anthony Richardson. But man, he's going to have to figure that passing out. I mean, he can't do the deep balls. His short yardage is not good either. Anthony Richardson at least had the superpower. He could chuck the ball deep perfectly. Like, he hit the deep balls beautifully. Like, if they could just bomb the ball every single play, Anthony Richardson would be a phenomenal quarterback. But it's the short and those middle, get it like Mendoza does perfectly. Just keep it to your guy, but away from the defense, just poking it to those points. And man, I just couldn't see him do it. It was just here, there, everywhere. He could zip the ball, but it doesn't matter because it would just go flying out of their hands. It just was, he did not have a good touch, man. And I like him because he's so incredibly athletic, and I want to fall for it again. But the beautiful part is, depending on where he goes in this NFL draft, you don't have to take him in the top, 4 or 5 picks like you did Anthony Richardson. You can get him in the 3rd in a super flex, possibly, maybe late 2nd with how his hype might go. Depending,
That might be a little rich, but 3rd
Yeah.
round, that seems to be the golden ticket.
But just tossing a dart at someone, I mean, we saw it happen with Milroe last year. People took darts on him, and you had to get him late 2nd, mid 2nd. And sure, that one's probably not going to pan out with Sam Darnold still there, at least not for now. But it's another guy that you can just take a shot on, because these guys that are these freak athletes, when Anthony Richardson did play, it didn't matter. He couldn't throw the ball because for fantasy football, which is the game we're playing, he scored you so many points. So it's just a guy that if you're just taking shots and you can't get rid of your 3rd or something, and you just want to take a shot on him and he's sitting there, I love it because he is an athletic freak, man.
Huge upside, dual threat, had over 400 yards rushing in the 4 seasons that he ended up actually playing. He did have a redshirt freshman year, so he's a little bit older. I think he's like 23. But this is the guy that I'm fine taking a shot on, Colton. I think it's just fine.
Like I said, man, I'm willing to take a shot. You're not having to pay as much. But it's just something to keep in the back of the mind. The intangibles are not there. Not there. And I'm burnt. I'm burnt from Anthony Richardson.
Can I add just one more thing about Green?
Absolutely.
He does have an out. Like, he'd be the perfect guy that could transition to like a tight end position if for whatever reason that the quarterback spot is taken on the team or on the roster. And so he's a guy that, you're spending a 3rd round pick in a super flex, and you might sit on him for a couple of years, and then you might decide, hey, you know what? Maybe I have a better opportunity to get on the field if I turn into a tight end. At one time, he was projected at 240 pounds. And so I think he had lost some weight in order to run at the combine. I think he ran at the combine. His combine weight was 227 instead of the 240. So I think he's a guy that could pack on some weight if he absolutely needed to be that move tight end.
Yeah. I see why you have him at 2.
That's your number 3?
That's my 3.
Okay. So just to be clear, you had Mendoza, Simpson, and then Green?
Correct.
Okay, I got Mendoza, Green, and then not Simpson. Cole Payton out of North Dakota State. I have him here. And basically, I think he's a developmental quarterback. I think he's a guy that needs to sit for probably 2 or 3 years if he's truly going to reach his ceiling in the NFL. He's 6'3", 232 pounds, so he's got a good build to him. He does have those 10-inch hands, Colton, those 10-inch hands. 8.2 college yards per attempt. I do not have a QBR on him or a breakout age, but he did run in the 94th percentile for the 40. He did show a 99th percentile for burst. I think he's more of a like a functioning type of scrambler. He's not really like a true dual threat, but he is a lefty. I think he's going to be projected to go to a team that likes left-handed quarterbacks, and that's probably Atlanta. What do you think there, Colton?
You and the hand size thing, I can't. As soon as you said it, I was like, I can't get past it. You're like a man with big hands.
You can hold on to it. So he had a he had a 15.48% rushing touchdown rate as a junior, and that would have been the highest of all time if he was converted into a running back. So again, he does have that athleticism that you're looking for. And again, in a class like this, I'm looking for someone that can have some upside with a pick. And so that's pretty much what I like about him. He also had a greater big time throw rate, 7.1% compared to other guys that have come from his college, like a Carson Wentz, who had only a 2.6%. And he was also a former first round pick. And his PFF rating was 95.8. which is tied with Mac Jones, another former first-round pick. So the NFL is not going to be drafting Cole Payton in the first round. He's a guy that's probably, if he's lucky, he'll get drafted in the third round. I think he's probably more of like a fourth, fifth round quarterback, maybe a little bit later, because he is a prospect. He's a guy that's going to have to develop, and he's going to be a third string quarterback for a lot of these rosters. But I like him. I like his athleticism. I think that's what really pushes him up for me to be at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this guy come into the league, and we've seen this guy get a second contract, and we've seen this guy get a third contract and traded for a 4th-round pick after he was the number 2 pick overall. Trey Lance, man. It's literally Trey Lance. Cheaper Trey Lance.
Also a North Dakota State.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's just another guy that, you know, he's coming from a smaller school that doesn't have the competition, that I think he plays well against these smaller schools, but I think once he hits the NFL once again, it's going to be just another Trey Lance situation. He's a very good runner, and he does have that. So you're taking shots, but once again, you're not paying, you know, Trey Lance money that you had to go and get Trey Lance 1st or 2nd overall in a super flex. He's going to be another guy that goes late, and if he gets a shot and he can use his legs, you know, maybe he can hang on to a position for a little bit. And we're playing fantasy football here. You're not out here to find your NFL quarterback of the future. If you got a guy that sits on the bench as a backup and he can come in, and, you know, you got the Marcus Mariota, someone that's mobile and getting you points as a backup, this could be the guy that you might even get undrafted, honestly, this year. There's a very good possibility, especially depending on what the NFL tells about in the draft. There's a very good chance that you can just pick them up off the waiver wires after your draft's over. If anything, you're throwing a 4th, and it's who cares?
Yep. I would rather see a guy like this get undrafted by the NFL, but I think the NFL values quarterback, and I think he will be drafted well before the draft ends this year. But just so you're aware, North Dakota State is officially moving up in college football. They're going to be joining the FBS, the Mountain West Conference. So going forward, although it doesn't help Cole Payton, it's going to help North Dakota State's prospects in the future.
Is that's like Colorado State and all that now? I believe so. How exciting.
There's a lot of college football teams out there, Colton. I'm not really sure, but you're probably right.
I believe so.
All right, let's hear your number 4.
The number 4, and you know, honestly, these 2 guys are interchangeable for me, and maybe your argument can maybe talk me into which one I like more. I can actually see your rankings in front of me, and so I can already tell you which one you like more.
Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry, I've got them in front of me. I need my numbers, man.
I'm trying to help you here.
You made a beautiful spreadsheet for me. It's 2 guys that were seen as top prospects in 2024, and it's 2 guys we saw fall off the wagon this year. So I'll go ahead and give you my 4 and 5. Right now, my 4 is sitting as Garrett Nussmeier of LSU. And this is somebody that we were talking about last year when we were like, we've got a couple of good quarterbacks coming out of next year's class. You know, Garrett Nussmeier was seen as this phenomenal quarterback. I mean, he was absolutely going nuts on the LSU team in 2024. So this is not last season. It's 2024. He ranked 5th in college of 4,052 passing yards in 2024, 29 passing touchdowns. But this year, I don't know what happened to this LSU team, man. It seems like he just started to grade. You know, in the 2024 season, he did have 12 interceptions. He played a lot of hero ball. When things break down, he does do hero ball and just kind of chucks it with his arm. And so, but he does have the elite arm strength. I mean, he can really sail that ball into windows, and he is able to really break down a team, especially their zone offense. You know, he was seen as the mastermind of like breaking down zone offense. And you kind of see that as he processes in the 2024 film. You see him process it, and you see him read the defense and make the right moves. And then this year, it seems like something clicked with this 2025 LSU team. He played a lot more hero ball. He started to get even riskier. Maybe 2025 just gave him too much confidence, and he's like, I can make these heroic throws, and it just brought too much confidence. You saw his you're not gonna like this, his red zone accuracy dropped to 42% this year, which is abysmal. I mean, that is one of the toughest times to be an NFL quarterback, is you really have to get good at making those tight window throws when the field gets shorter. And that number is just very concerning, but he could very well be a developmental piece. I mean, if he goes to the Rams and gets to sit with Sean McVay behind Matt Stafford for a year or two, I could see Nussmeier coming out and being a good NFL quarterback. I mean, the skills and the numbers were there at one point. What happened this year, I can't speak to the LSU team, but
I can. Can I provide some context?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nussmeier, as you said, he had a fantastic season in 2024. He was actually projected to be the number one quarterback coming out of this year's class. And he enters this year's season with a torn oblique. He ended up getting a torn oblique earlier in the season, and that's one of our pure core muscles that we need in order to rotate our trunk in order to get the ball down the field. So what do you think is going to happen when he's trying to chuck the ball deep? Well, he's probably not going to be able to toss it as fast or with as much accuracy or as much velocity because he has a torn oblique. He does have some other injury concerns. He has a degenerative knee injury. Nussmeier was a guy I kept going back and forth with whether I was going to have him at number 3 or number 4. I ended up settling with number 4, mainly because of some of the injury concerns. But that being said, he's a pure pocket passer. He doesn't have that rushing ability, but he does have that quick release that we're looking for. And so I think he is a guy that he's a developmental quarterback, but I feel like he's a quarterback that could be thrust into a situation where he could start earlier than like a Cole Payton, earlier than a Taylon Green. And so if you're looking on your roster and you're like, I want a guy that's going to maybe start a couple games this season or start a couple games next season, I think Garrett Nussmeier is probably one of those guys. A couple other red flags I had for him is size. He's only 6'1". He's 200 pounds. He's 24 years old. So he had 5 years, I believe, at LSU. And so, and hand size, he was 8-inch, but at the combine, he did somehow grow his hand up to that 9-inch mark. So he has some potential. I do like him here at number 4.
Yeah, definitely a developmental piece. You and your hand size.
I'm going to just keep leaning into it, Colton.
Wait, your spreadsheet says 6'2".
Oh, he must have grew an inch also.
Are you lying to our fans right now?
No, he must have grew at the combine to that 6'2" level. I had him documented at 6'1" prior to, but I didn't fix it on my Microsoft Word. The Excel that you're looking at has the numbers from the combine.
He had his cleats on for that measurement.
Yeah, spiked up his hair.
Gave him a little extra inch. But yeah, I definitely, and his dad, I mean, he's been in the NFL game for a while. His dad is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints currently. So he has the pedigree. He's got people. He's been around NFL or football his whole life. So, somebody that I think could potentially be a developmental piece. And I think it is somebody that the NFL will take a shot on to have, once again, probably a third. My guess for a super flex draft. And I'm willing to throw that at somebody like this and let him sit on my taxi and see if he pans out. So,
yeah, you said about the Rams, but the Steelers could also find him in the 3rd round, and
I just don't trust their development. I don't trust their development as much. Like I said, the Rams, because that's an opportune, like that would get me very excited to get somebody to really develop them. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I like that, actually. If he can sit behind Stafford for a year,
yeah,
sky's the limit.
Yeah. that would something that would get me very excited. I'll go ahead and just throw out my next guy as well because I teased everybody. That's Drew Aller of Penn State. He's someone that, once again, 2024, we were talking about him like we got a couple of quarterbacks in next year's class, and he looked absolutely incredible. Towards the beginning and through most of his seasons. Things started to degrade towards the end, and in the championship game, he just kind of absolutely plummeted, and he dropped to a 51.3% completion against a tough Oregon. And so the Big Ten championship was that, and just absolutely plummeted against some of these tougher defenses. And so it was once again another guy, though, that looked like he had so much hope. And then he comes into the 2025 season after having a rough end of year 2024. Looks all right, but just lost all the spark that he had. Plays, I think it was 7 games, and then breaks his ankle, and we lose all of it. And to be said of the Penn State team of 2025 is they were not the team of 2024. They couldn't run the ball. They didn't have very good weapons in the receiving game. So he was working against a lot of things, then goes and gets injured, and it just kind of gets tossed to the wayside because he did go and get injured. He has probably, in my opinion, the best arm of this class. He was able to really zip the ball. He had the downfield ability he had an arm to get it downfield. So I do like that about him. It's just somebody, once again, that had such high potential in the year prior, and 2025 just seemed like it fell upon him and just kind of wrecked all hopes and dreams. So somebody I'm definitely willing to once again take another shot on, which showed true potential at one point in time, and now is sitting there as an option for a team to come and develop. Once again, another developmental piece. I think you need to sit for a few years in the NFL, but somebody that has some attributes that are good.
I was sad to see that I actually had him rated as low as that I did, and I have a different guy at number 5 that don't plug your nose. But Drew Aller, like you said, he does have some fantastic arm talent, but he had a really low QBR, and I value QBR in order for like starting caliber quarterbacks, and he only had a 69.8, 38th percentile. And so that really drove him down. And then not only that, but his yards per attempt was down to 7.7, 34th percentile. He did have a good breakout age at 19 and a half. I think he's a strategic scrambler, and he's one that is not afraid of contact. So I think that gives him a plus. He was a former 5-star recruit, but I had some other guys that I thought were a little bit more athletic, some guys that I think had a little bit more potential ahead of them. I think the red flags at the QBR, the yards per attempt, that's really what kind of pushed him down in my rankings. But again, Colton, please don't plug your nose here. I can't believe I have him here, really, to be honest, and I have him ahead of Ty Simpson by 2 spots. I got Ty Simpson at number 7, but at my number 5, I've got Carson Beck, Miami, Georgia. He's 6'5". He's got the 230 build. His quarterback college QBR was 83.5, one of the top 4 in this year's class. It's 83rd percentile. He had 8.8 yards per attempt. That's 75th percentile. Now his breakout age is in the 47th percentile range, right at that 20 years old. I think he is a quarterback that, maybe not in fantasy football that we're going to value, but in the NFL, I think they're going to look at him and say he is a backup ready quarterback, and that's what's going to provide him an opportunity to start some games, unlike a Ty Simpson. So that's why I had Carson Beck there at number 5. I think the NFL is going to value him, and with the NFL value him, it's going to provide opportunity, and then opportunity leads to fantasy points, and fantasy points leads to you potentially getting a steal in a guy that, again, you don't even have to throw a draft pick maybe at, but he does have name cachet. So even if you drafted in the 4th round, he starts to show a little bit of light. You might be able to flip him for like a 3rd. I mean, I mean, you got to. It's all about the small little tactics that you have here in Dynasty, and I don't know. What do you think about Carson Beck? Is it like I said, you got to plug your nose and you got to press maybe the accept button at some point? And in this type of class, I think there's not a lot of difference between some of these guys that are behind them.
I mean, I think your analysis was pretty spot on. He's going to come in. He's experienced. He's been in the college. He's in his master's degree. Yeah, he's working on his master's. And so it's somebody
A smart kid, right?
That doesn't mean anything. They give those things out to their football players. But he is somebody that comes in with plenty of experience. He's the guy that he is a game manager to a T. He just kind of gets the ball where it needs to go, not impressively, doesn't have any rushing upside, doesn't really play hero ball. He just kind of gets the ball around and doesn't really make the big mistakes and has plenty of experience doing that. So he's just a guy to me. I can honestly say at this point, so like I talked about my top 5. And after that, those are the guys that I'm definitely thinking of taking a shot on. Carson Beck is someone that if he goes undrafted, I'll pick him up and stash him, like you said, to be a backup possibility. But it's not someone I'm going to be excited to click draft or anything on. And once again, he's just someone that I think he's a guy.
What pushed him up my rankings was probably that seeing
hand
him
size.
Oh yeah, I don't know what his hand size is. What did
10.
I have written down?
10 inches.
There you go. Bam, Colton. Bam. But no, all honesty, the combine, watching him throw, he looked very accurate with his throws, unlike some of these other quarterbacks that are behind him. And again, I wasn't impressed with what I saw from Ty Simpson. There was a kid that was in front of me that just wouldn't stop talking the entire time in the NFL Combine, Mr. Know-It-All himself, and found out that he was an Alabama fan, whether I wanted to know that or not. So he had to get some different videos of Ty Simpson, and every time he was trying to take a video, it was like, oh, I better redo that one again.
Yeah. We are at the point of this quarterback draft class too. I don't know where you're at. For me, Carson Beck was probably the last one that I would even say I'm going to pick him up the waiver wire.
So there's not any other quarterbacks that provide any intrigue for you past number 5?
I'll toss out some names and you tell me how you feel, since we're getting to the little hour.
This is the after effect here. We're just trying to talk about maybe some guys, if they get drafted a little bit earlier than projected, might have some opportunities on your fantasy rosters.
Yeah, so just a couple names that are actually, I mean, they've gathered quite a bit of attention too. And you let me know. You stopped me. Luke Altmaier of Illinois, U of I. I think he's definitely an interesting name, could step in and once again back up role, but not going to be a starter. Haynes King, as I know someone that you also like.
That's my 8 and 9. Haynes King is 25 years old. The chances of him firing in the NFL aren't great coming out of Georgia Tech, but he is athletic, and athleticism matters in fantasy football. So if he has an opportunity, then that's a guy that I might pick up. But he's going to be a guy I put a star next to when I see, what's buzzing come training camp and preseason. But I'm probably not drafting him, and I'm probably not picking him up off the waivers until I hear a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just these are absolutely going to be people that come off the waiver wire. And so that's, it's just some teams that, or some teams might take a shot on having a backup quarterback, because we've seen them have struggles, and I think they're more willing to move around their backup quarterbacks, just be like, well, let's try them out, just to have as a safety blanket. So some other few names that have kind of jumped on people's boards. Cade Klubnik, obviously out of Clemson. He's not super high on my board. I wasn't very impressed. So he's definitely fallen for me. What other names you've got?
Yeah, I mean, Cade Klubnik, again, there was some the size, the lack of QBR, 69.5. He doesn't even reach the 75th percentile. So he's not a guy I'm really targeting. Yards per attempt for Klubnik was 7.5. That's 29th percentile. So no thank you there. A guy that I think has at least known in the fantasy space, and that's Diego Pavia out of Vanderbilt. Again, 24 years old, red flag, 5'10", even bigger red flag. But he did do well with his college QBR at 87.2, which is 92nd percentile. I like that. And then 9.4 yards per attempt. That's 87th percentile. And you know that I like that as well.
You like that? You like that?
So he has some traits that I think are interesting. I think his size is a problem. And I know that, Kyler Murray's in the league and Bryce Young's in the league, but I don't know if Diego Pavia has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback, but I think he's an interesting name, and I'd be interested to see what the NFL thinks at the NFL draft.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in order to have that frame, you really have to have the hype and the draft capital to back it up. And he's just not going to get that. And he also caused problems too. You can't have that when you are not a high draft capital or anything. So in my opinion, he's just kind of off my board. And, unless he gets some very shocking capital to him, he's just going to probably be one of those guys I ignore.
Yeah, and I think one more guy that I can say that might have some interest in is that Jalen Daniels out of Kansas. But again, a little bit of problems with the size. He is 6'1", but he was at least kind of a yellow flag across the board in regards to like college QBR, yards per attempt, and breakout age. So another guy, like if he gets drafted and finds himself in a situation where he has opportunity, he might be a guy I would have some interest in because he is a dual threat type of quarterback.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Why don't you say your top five? I'll say my top five once more for the viewers, and we'll have to look forward to next week's episode, which I think we got to go tight end. Colton?
I do love a good tight end. That's why I do squats.
That's a good one, Dad.
Lots and lots of squats.
All right, my top five: Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Taylon Green, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller.
I got Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, Taylon Green, Arkansas, Cole Payton, North Dakota State, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, and then you got Carson Beck, who is out of Miami. And that is pretty much our quarterback prospects for the 2026 season. Yes, the quarterback class is not that great. It's basically just the one on the top, and then the rest are just going to be some dart throws. But I hope some of the analysis from this episode will provide you with the details that you need to help dominate your dynasty fantasy football leagues. And if you did enjoy our show, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. You can find us where all podcasts are found. Just search Fantasy Football Healers. You can find me at FF Healers, Colton at FF Captain 22 on Twitter X. And thanks for listening.
Salud.